So, hi everybody, welcome to Universal Truths. So, when I did my healing course, this is in the 98, I did the basic and then the advanced course back to back. And we did some meditations and stuff when I first started to actually actively do meditations. Um, the lady who trained us brought in this huge African drum. When I say huge, it must have been about this far across the top of it. So it's a big one. Very deep, deep sound. And so she and her partner, so he talked us through the meditation. He took us through it. So we were in quite a big room. I think there's probably a dozen or so people all together. So he and the lady was at the top in front of us. So he talked us through it, and then at one point she started playing this drum, and just the frequency and the depth of this drum just took you off. And I don't even remember disappearing from this dimension. I was just gone. The next thing I remember seeing myself walking down this. It was like an access tunnel. You know the access tunnels you get when the guys are going to climb into a rocket. You get the access tunnel. It goes to the rocket from the main building, kind of thing. So it was like an access tunnel like that. It was all white and there was these windows, and I looked through the windows and I could just see stars. I was like, wow, so where am I? So I walked further down and I looked either side of this tunnel and I could just see stars and galaxies. I was like, wow, this is really cool. So I walked to the end and it wasn't actually that far. Got to the end and on the left-hand side was a door. So I reached across and I opened this door and there was just the universe, galaxies, stars was just in front of me. And I just stepped out and I ended up just floating amongst all these stars and, just in amazement, but completely at peace. And yeah, it was an amazing experience. Um, and the next thing I remember, like a massive electric shock through my body, and I was back in the room. And the chap was standing over me, and he said, and everybody was standing over me actually, because they had all come back and I hadn't. And they actually, he had to physically ground me. And he said, when you ground somebody that's out of their body, when you touch somebody, it is like an electric shock because you get pulled back with tremendous force, basically. And he apologized profusely. He said, I'm so sorry, I had to do this. He said, but you weren't coming back, so we had to come and get you. But as you say with your experience, it was one of those where you just didn't want to talk because you felt like you were completely drained and exhausted from not exertion, but just you just weren't synced up with your body and you just didn't want to do anything. If anything, I wanted to actually go back to where I just come from, to experience that stillness and that peaceful place. Um, but yeah, so I completely get the fact that, you couldn't manage to talk. So I understand that experience completely. Yeah. But yeah, those are really good experiences. It's a few times that I've actually managed to see progression from this level of consciousness into the next, where usually you get that switch over and you don't recall when you actually change frequencies. And for a long time, I tried many different methods and ways to try and experience that exact moment where you switch over, like when you change channels. And I've had that a couple of times, and it's such an amazing thing because once you manage to slow it down, it's really that slow and gentle, and it's like a fading in and out from one to the other, where mostly everybody tends to just like skip across, like changing the TV channel. Mostly that's what happens. But that's incredible when you can get to that stage. To call it control would be maybe incorrect, but it's the kind of thing I like to do. Getting down to the real nitty gritty and the fine details, yeah, and really understanding, really owning that experience and saying, yeah, so I managed to do that. I managed to see every millisecond of the transition phase, which you normally don't get to appreciate. Have you ever had something like that?
Okay,
Managed
I'm
to do that?
fascinated. Keep going, keep going. I want you, can you speak to that? Can you tell us what that was like in a little bit more detail?
Um,
Like, I mean, you got it to slow down. It's like, ooh, it's good.
yeah, to it's been a while that this happened, and I'm trying to sort of dial back to the moment when it actually happened. I can sort of feel the memory, but exactly the detail when is a bit blurry. But it's like a gentle sliding. If you can imagine, um, if you've ever experienced your third eye opening slowly, that's probably as close a comparison as you can get. Because I've experienced my third eye opening slowly, and it's almost like the old camera shutter lens that closes and opens gently, opens like that, yeah. And then eventually it fills your whole peripheral screen, and then you find yourself fully immersed in that image. So that slow opening, and at times I managed to control opening and closing, and opening and closing it, and then going even further and saying, I don't particularly fancy this dimension that I'm seeing, so I'm going to change it to a different one. Because the dimensions that I was seeing were dimensions without creation. And I didn't realize at the time that there was no creation in those dimensions. They are like a blank canvas. And at first I didn't understand what it was, because what I was seeing was a tapestry of geometrics. They're just flat. And wherever I turned my face, thinking that I might find some shapes, some definition, some depth to this place, where it just looked like somebody had put up a new wallpaper. That's what it looked like. All these, some of these dimensions were like Persian carpet like designs. I was like, how can this be? You know, it was these weird shapes, and for a long time I would experience these dimensions. My third eye would open like this shutter, and I would see these things, and I didn't understand what it was. I thought, well, this is boring. I'm not seeing anything, so I just stop, change frequency, go to another one, and then from like a bluish or greenish, go to like an orangey or yellow. And I was like, but this is the same thing. There's no shape. It's just this flat surface. And it's only much later in my development that it was explained to me that this is actually a dimension without any creation within it. So it hasn't been, nobody's actually designed anything in this particular frequency. So this is why it's just a flat surface. Nobody's gone in and said, I'm going to make a tree or a house or a car or, a sun or a moon or from within this dimension. It's just a flat surface. And the designs actually reflect the frequency. So the frequency is the design. Because as we know, the fractals, the universe is made up of recurring fractals. And this is just one small part of, a molecule of one of those fractals, tentacles of one of the fractals that I was seeing the design of on that particular frequency where nobody had actually done anything with that particular frequency. So that was strange. But at the same time, a bit boring because there's nothing to see, And other times I've gone into places where, oh, look, there's people, so that I can go and, have a look around and see what's going on. But this was just like, oh, one of these empty spaces again, kind of thing. But yeah, but the interesting part is that the ability to slide in, slide out, open the third eye and close. It's almost like it's like a dark, it's like the night, it's all black and then it starts to open. You go, oh, look, it's working. Then you have to try and stay calm not get too excited because otherwise you lose it again, you know. So it's in those moments that I managed to stay neutral. So I could continue with the experience as opposed to the other experiences where they're so wild that you just get too excited and just lose the plot. So, but yeah, but yeah, it's just a moving forward, a sliding, and you just end up across on the other side. The actual transition itself, it doesn't feel any different. It's not like we were talking the other day about when a portal opens in this dimension anywhere near, you can feel a change, a temperature. You can feel you can feel the hole, even if you're not looking at it, you can feel there's a change because the density's changed and the temperature's changed. In this case, there's none of that. So to tell exactly when the change over happens exactly, precisely, yeah, it's quite difficult. That needs more study. Where one of these portals that opens in the room with you and the change in temperature, if you were to step through, you would feel that change in temperature because it physically is, where this isn't. So yeah, it's quite difficult to describe. I think it's probably the best I can do, I'm afraid, at this stage. I hope that explains it somewhat, answers some of your
Yeah.
questions.
Yes, yeah. So the Persian carpets, that's what me and my sister used to call it. We would see that at night. Like when it was really dark, I could see in the dark if I just kind of was soft gazing. We used to call it playing with the Persian carpets. And my sister and I would share a room. She's a little bit younger than me. And I would say, "Can you see the carpets? Can you see the Persian carpets?" And we would discuss, what dimension do you think that is? Because I could see that with my physical eyes, just with my eyes open. And
Yeah,
I can still do it now if it's dark enough, like if there's not too much artificial light coming around
I've
in a
I've had
space.
it, I've had it twice where I've come out from doing that particular technique and seeing the carpets, yeah, and then
Yeah.
opening my eyes where it's middle of the night in my room, and then looking around and say, and my third eye still open, so I can see my physical, but the carpet stays in front of me, and wherever you turn, it moves around like a pane of glass within the room. Does that make sense? So you can see
Yeah, yeah.
both. I was like move my head around to see, if I move my head, then the carpet moves, but the rest of the room stays still because my physical eyes are staying still. But my third eye is moving this carpet around the room. It's quite weird to understand as you've actually experienced it, I think. But that's
I
quite
think
nice.
one time I think one time too, though, I got it so it was almost like a kaleidoscope. You know, like when you used to look in those kaleidoscopes as kids and you could
Yeah,
move it and it would switch. I actually got to the point where it was almost kaleidoscopic, if I remember right, like when I was little. And so I don't remember what you're saying because I used to kind of keep changing it, like rotating it and shifting it, and it seemed like it had dimensionality.
right.
But I'm wondering if it really did, because I think it was moving, it was kind of fluid at times. But maybe it was that. Maybe it was because I kept my head still. I'm not sure now. I'll have to play with it and
Maybe.
see if I can get it to happen.
Yeah, I've seen that kind of design, like you say, in those. I remember those toys when we were kids. You'd rotate and they would change, you know, that with different color schemes. And I've seen those kind of color schemes and the Persian carpet ones and then the sort of the plain design ones. Um, but to tell you which dimension that is, I wouldn't even begin to hesitate to comment. No clue. There's no reference point, so don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm getting second dimension. I'm hearing that, but I don't know. That's what just came through intuitively. That's what I'm hearing. Does
Could
that
be,
resonate?
could be
Yeah.
because either first or second, because of the fact that there's not 3D, it's a flat surface. Could
Hmm.
very well be. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like to commit to saying definitely, you know. But it's interesting, and I just like the mechanism, the how, the how you do it and the how you can actually consciously go in and go out and change channels and go and check another one out. And that's the kind of stuff I like to do. But yeah, those flat 2Ds, just like for me, it's just, no, too boring. Next, let's move on.
Well, if I can speak to the third eye because that's my zone, one of my zone of geniuses. And I remember I was at a concert and I got there late, and it's my favorite band, it's Radiohead, and they were playing, and I was all the way at the back of the field. But I actually got my third eye to sync up with my physical eyes so I could zoom in like I was front row. And it was phenomenal. And I don't know exactly how I got this to happen, but it was just like I really wanted to see something on the stage, and I was so far back. There was no way physically you could see. I was like almost at the back because I got there late. Traffic was bad trying to get up there to Chicago. It's Lollapalooza 2016. And I got to zoom in, and oh my God, I remember just being so blown away because it was just automatic. It was like this zoom. It was like, just like you said with the camera lens. I totally relate to how you were describing it, because all of a sudden it was like I just had this zoom ability. And since then, I've learned in recent times, because I'm always learning more, the third eye is not limited to our five senses. It can see any dimension, it can see anything, any time, space. It can zoom in, it can zoom out, it can do anything.
Yeah.
So I think as we start as a collective to learn more about the third eye, and we have more and more people getting comfortable working with this, it's going to be fascinating. It's almost like a lot of what I'm writing now is trying to give us like little user manuals, kind of notes from my experiences, because I learn something new every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I practice it. It's a practice. This is why I love it when you say how important the inner work is, because then you get to play with things like this, and I feel like I love what we're doing here. I love that we're bringing these experiences and sharing them, because I know the people in the audience, feel free to put it in the comments, your experiences. Let's let's start a conversation over here where we can share experiences and kind of figure it out. If somebody else has the Persian carpets, because I love that you're talking about Persian carpet. The way that you called it Persian carpets, I don't know if I've heard anyone else call it that except for me and my sister, but it was so elaborate. It looked so beautiful, the patterns. There's no better way than to describe it, because there was elaborate patterns. You could see repetition in the patterns. It was very, fractal based, but it looked just like this most beautiful, epic, very colorful Persian carpet design.
Yeah.
And again, that's, children have to die naturally. It's only toxins and that I can't do this, the logic brain kind of gets dominant when we're in school as kids, and it kind of pulls us out of our whole brain function, which, just before we started recording, I was saying how you can sync the physical eyes with the third eye just by being aware. There's minor chakras and temples, and then the pineal center is right in the center. And I was describing that triangle connection point between the three, and that's how you can sync it up, with your physical. That's how I did it when I was at Lollapalooza, watching my,
Right.
watching my concert, because and that just happened spontaneously. That was the first time that ever happened. So again, don't feel, this has real practical, amazing ability. I mean, it was better than any camera or any lens. I mean, I could have done it with a gadget or a device, but it was literally so vivid and so amazing, the vision. And on top of that, I could hear them like I was in the front too. So again, it wasn't just the vision that the third eye hooked me up to. It was almost like I got zoomed in. I was all of a sudden in a whole different space. And getting back to your time space folding, I'm really excited that you had that experience, because I'm thinking, wow, what's going to come out of that?
Yeah.
That's almost like a third eye thing too, I think, starting to get activated in you. And wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. I like your description of the technique you use with the triangle, and I'm definitely going to take that one away, slide that into my back pocket, and have a go with that because that sounds like something right up my street. So yeah, definitely gonna have a play with that. But yeah, so it's all good. So we'll finish here, then we'll move on to the next topic, the next subject. So we'll catch you
Yeah.
guys later.